Good morning, children. Now we will read about what the rebels wanted, what were their aims and objective, why they revolted against the British government, what kind of society they wanted. So we will read about all these things. We will read about the visions of the rebellious leaders. So now we haven't got any written document by the rebellious leader which can tell us that so and so was their vision, so and so was their plan, why they wanted to expel the Britishers out of India, and what kind of alternative system they want to establish. So we do not have any written material directly by these leaders, so we do not have a direct evidence which was written by the rebellious leaders that what is their vision after expelling the British out of the India, what are their aims and objectives, what are their plans for the future. We do not get a direct glimpse of their views about the future plan, because rebellions did not write down or did not pen down these kind of objectives and aims. But still, we are having some indirect evidences with the help of which we can come to know about their visions, what the rebellious leader really wanted. So that thing can be known only through the indirect evidences. So we will talk about those indirect evidences which includes some sort of istihars, notifications which were issued by the rebellious leader, and it was issued for the general public. So from these istihars, notifications, we are trying to trace out what the rebellious leaders wanted, what they really wanted. So the proclamation and istihars, that is called notifications, were issued by the rebel leaders. For example, the Azamgarh proclamation. Azamgarh is in UP, and this proclamation is also given in your book, and you can read it clause by clause, and you will come to know about the future plan of these rebellious leaders, their vision, and the vision of these rebellious leaders you can come to know after reading that Azamgarh proclamation, which was proclaimed by the rebellious leaders, and it was issued on 25th August 1857. The rebels tried to get the support of all sections of the society, irrespective of their caste and creed. Now rebels wanted to win their battle against the Britishers, and they thought that it could not be achieved and till that time when we will be able to unite all the caste and religion together. It means irrespective of their religion, whether it is Hindu or Muslim, they both have to be united in a fight against the Britishers. Only they could be successful, otherwise they could not be successful. So whatever proclaimed by the rebellious leader, that was proclaimed while keeping in the mind the unity of both Hindu as well as the Muslims. The rebellions was viewed as a war which both Hindus and Muslims stood. So they called their revolt as the holy war against the Britishers, because there were many rumors that Britishers wanted to destroy the religion of both Hindu and Muslim together. As a result, they wanted to unite in this fight both Hindu as well as the Muslims. So they thought that both Hindu and Muslim should come together to fight against the oppressor, and here the oppressor was the Britishers. Equally to lose or gain. If they win the battle, they will gain. So gain will be both for both communities, Hindu as well as the Muslims. If they will lose the fight, then it will be a loss for both the communities, Hindu as well as Muslims. So they should come together. Forgetting about their differences, they should fight together against the Britishers. So that was the vision of the rebellious leader, which we have come to know from the Azamgarh proclamation. Means they wanted to force the unity between Hindu and Muslim. The istihar means notification brought to the forefront memories of the pre-British Hindu-Muslim past. So Muslim rule was there in India for a long period of time, and in this subcontinent both Hindu and Muslims were living together from times immemorial. So they wanted to bring back that time of the past when Hindu and Muslim used to live together and they used to live together in harmony. So they wanted to hark back to the same time when Hindu and Muslim unity was there and where the kings were either Hindu or the Muslim. The proclamation issued under the name of Bahadur Shah. So Bahadur Shah Zafar, who was made the leader by the rebellious leaders, and the proclamation was also issued in the name of Bahadur Shah Zafar. Because if the proclamation was issued in the name of such leader like Bahadur Shah Zafar, Rani Lakshmi Bai, then it would have a wide appeal to the sentiment of the people. As a result, deliberately the notifications or istihars were issued in the name of the ruler like Bahadur Shah Zafar to the people to join the fight. It means the istihar was issued like that people should join the fight against the Britishers. So it was an appeal to the common man to come forward and join the fight against the Britishers, which was undertaken by these rebellious leaders. So that was an appeal which was made in the name of Bahadur Shah Zafar. And it was written that this is a fight which is for both Muhammad and Mahavir. Here Muhammad stands for Muslim and Mahavir stands for Hindus. So it means it's a shared struggle of Muhammad as well as the Mahavir. It means it is a joint struggle of Hindu and Muslim. So it is the responsibility of both the communities to come forward and fight against the Britishers. So they tried to give it the name of a holy war against the Britishers, against the symbol of oppressions. They called the British regime to be very oppressive. So here we will read about whom the rebellious leaders considered to be the symbol of oppressions and how they were attacked by these rebellious people. The British land revenue settlement or system had dispossessed landlords. That we have already discussed, that how the talukdars were dispossessed of their land under the summary settlement of Awadh. The same kind of settlement were also implemented in various parts of India like Rayatwadi in South India, Mahalwadi in Northwest India, and permanent settlement in West Bengal. The same way summary settlement in Awadh region. And because of these new revenue policies, the peasants were oppressed. Foreign commerce had ruined the weavers and artisans. There was a time in the past during the Mughal rule when the woven clothes from India were in great demand all over Europe. That we have already discussed in chapter 8. During the Mughal time, the clothes of India used to reach to the Europe and they were in great demand. So weavers were earning quite good amount of money through weaving process. But now due to the coming of the manufactured item from the Britishers, because now there were mills in the England and they used to produce clothing, and that cloth used to come to India and that was a finished good. As a result, India started facing a competition with the British manufactured goods. And since these clothes were woven in the mills or in the industries, so they were produced in the mass quantity. As a result, their prices were very low, and as a result, the clothes which were woven in India, that was mainly handloom, which was manufactured by the artisans or weavers. So it was having a high prices. As a result, the Indian clothes started losing their market in the domestic field as well as at the international level. So it was a bad time for the weavers and artisans. So they wanted to bring back that golden period when weaver and artisans used to earn a lot of money because of the weaving clothes. British rule was attacked and accused of destroying a way of life that was familiar and cherished. It means the life which was going on before the arrival of the British, that was quite good life, and it was all destroyed by the British East India Company. The rebel wanted to restore the previous life because they considered that life was quite good, because there was no question of livelihood. They were earning quite a good amount of money through the weaving process and some other artisanal works. So they wanted to restore the previous life again, and which has been destroyed by the Britishers. The rebels wanted their livelihood to be secure, but now, after the arrival of the Britishers, the livelihood of the Indian people was not secure because they were losing their employment, they were losing their crafts, they were not getting adequate market where they can sell their product. So their livelihood was not secure, and they wanted to secure their livelihood, and for that the expulsion of the British was must. So the rebellious used to think that the livelihood of the Indian people could be secure only when the Britishers would be expelled from India. So they should be sent out of India, and the revolt was for sending them out of this subcontinent. Now we will read further about against the symbol of oppressions. In many places the rebellion against the British widened into attack on all those who were seen as allies to the British or local oppressor. So the oppression cycle, which was started in India by the Britishers, it was not done only by the Britishers. There were many Indian counterparts who used to be a party to the Britishers, and they were helping the Britishers to set up their rule in India. They were also helping the Britishers to exploit the people of India. So the rebellion leaders, they also widened the attack. They were not attacking now only upon the Britishers. They also started attacking those people who used to be considered as a party to the Britishers, who were considered as an ally to the Britishers or as an helper to the Britishers. So those Indians were also attacked. Mainly these used to be the contractor, these used to be the Gomasthas that we have discussed in 10th class. These used to be the people or the kings who used to be an ally to the Britishers. These used to be the money lenders or revenue collectors. So they were also attacked by the rebellions. The rebel deliberately sought to humiliate the elites. They have become quite rich people with the support of the British rule. So they were called as the elite, and they used to live in the city. So they were also attacked by the rebellions, and they used to live in villages and cities, and they were mainly the money lender who used to provide loan to the people, the peasants, and they were extracting a high rate of interest from the people, and they used to maintain an account book that is called as the Bahi Khata. So that was snatched from them by these rebellion leaders, and these were ransacked and they were burnt by the rebellious leaders. Even the houses of the moneylender were also ransacked by the rebellious people, and they snatched the account book. It was burnt so that they in the future they do not demand money from these people. So moneylenders, they were considered equally oppressor as the Britishers. As a result, their houses were attacked, their Bahi Khatas were burnt by the rebellious people. This was an attempt to overturn the traditional hierarchies, a rebel against all kind of oppressor. So this is another view another vision which we come to know from these activities, that rebellions wanted an egalitarian kind of society. What is egalitarian society? Where everybody is considered to be equal, and wherever no kind of oppression is there in the society. So that kind of society these rebellious leaders wanted. So this is another vision which comes to the forefront after studying the activities which were undertaken by the rebellious leaders. Such visions were not articulated in the proclamation. So these things, this kind of vision about the society is not proclaimed in any proclamation like the Azamgarh proclamation, but the work or the activities which were undertaken by the rebellious leader, we can get inferences from that what kind of society they wanted, what were their vision about the society. So they wanted an egalitarian kind of society. The search for alternative power. At many places, the Britishers were overthrown by these rebellions As a result, they set up an alternative administrative system in those areas. So here we will read about those centers of alternative powers. In the region where the British rule collapsed, especially in Delhi, Meerut, the British rule was collapsed, and it was also collapsed in the region of Awadh. The rebels set up parallel administration like in Delhi, Lucknow, that is in Awadh, and Kanpur, which is also in Awadh region. So they set up a parallel administrative system, and it was the replication of the administrative system which used to be there before the arrival of the Britishers. The rebel leadership wanted to restore the pre-British world of the 18th century. They set up their rule in 18th century after 1757. So what kind of administrative structure was there before the rule started by the Britishers? That kind of administrative structure was restored by these rebellious leaders in those areas where British rule was put to an end by the rebellions. The administrative structure established by the rebels aimed at meeting the demands of war, because now a holy war was going against the Britishers. So they set up such kind of administrative structure where the expenditure and the demand for fighting the war against the Britishers could be met out. So it could be done only by collecting the revenue. So a parallel revenue policy was also adopted by the rebellious leaders in those areas where British rule came to an end. The leaders went back to the culture of the court. The culture of the court which used to be there in the Mughal period, that was followed again. Appointments were made to various posts. These posts were ended by the Britishers, like we have read in the Awadh, that how the servants of the Nawab were made unemployed. Their posts were abolished by the Britishers. So these appointments were made again by the rebellious people. Arrangements were also made for the collection of land revenue. Now why they wanted to collect the land revenue? Because it was a source of income, and a lot of expenditure was done in the war which was going against the Britishers. So to meet the demand of that war, they wanted income, and major source of the income was the land revenue. So they set up a parallel policy to the Britishers of land revenue. They started collecting the land revenue, and in this way the income was generated for these rebellions. And they also paid to the soldiers in the troops after collection of the land revenue, because they wanted to make a big army which could fight against the Britishers, and for that they required resources. So land revenue was a major source of that resource. Side by side, plans were also made to fight battle against the Britishers. So they continued their battle against the Britishers, and they were very hopeful that now is the time when they will be able to expel the Britishers out of their country. Now what happened after that we will discuss. Now repression. So what the rebels thought and what plan they made, whether it could be successful or not, that we will discuss here. Repression means revolt को दबाया कैसे गया, and who crushed the revolt of 1857? It was the Britishers. So here we will talk about the action plan of the Britishers, that how they were able to curb the revolt of 1857, why it could not be successful, and what policy they adopted in crushing the rebellious leaders. The British passed a series of laws to help them quell the insurgency. They called the rebellious leader as the insurgent. So what is insurgency? Insurgency is an armed rebellion against the existing setup of administration, and after uprooting that administration, generally insurgent control that land or that territory. So that is called insurgency. So they did not call them the freedom fighter, rather the Britishers called them as the insurgent, so they passed a series of acts in their parliament to curb this insurgency which was going on against the Britishers in India. Whole North India was brought under the martial law. Martial law is a kind of military law. So entire North India was now not under the civil law, rather it was under the martial law or military law. Under the martial law, military has given some special powers. Like in India, the army is given some special powers in Kashmir region and in northeastern region also, because in northeastern region there is also a kind of insurgency. Military officers and even ordinary Britons were given the power to try and punish the Indian suspected rebellions. So who could punish the culprit? It is the government or the court. But now the Britishers gave the power to the ordinary British people, ordinary Britons, to punish the suspected rebellions who were Indians. It means अगर उनको लगता है कि so and so person rebellious है तो वो उसको punish कर सकते थे, whether he is a government officer or not. The ordinary processes of law and trial were suspended. So whatever rule of law was there, that was suspended for the time being, and some harsh rules were made for the Indians so that they could be curbed easily. And it was put out that rebellions would have only one punishment, and that is the capital punishment, death. It means whosoever rebellious leader would be captured, there will be no trial, no hearing in the court, no long process of justice. Simply he would be put to death. So that was the only punishment which was decided for these rebellious people. The British tried to break up the unity by promising to give back the big lands holders their estate. Now we read that how the talukdars were dispossessed of their land. And now talukdars were taking an active part against the Britishers in the fight which was carried on by the rebellion soldiers and people in India. Now the talukdars became very troublesome for the Britishers. As a result, they wanted to break the unity of these talukdars. So they followed the policy of divide and rule. So they tried to divide the unity of the talukdars by promising to the talukdars that whosoever would help the Britishers at the time of this crisis, he would be rewarded suitably after the revolt would be over, and when the rule of the British would be set up again in those areas where their rule had been collapsed. So some of the talukdars, they became treacherous and they joined the Britishers. So that was a way to break the unity of the rebellious people by promising or by alluring them to give more areas of land under their control, or their talukdari would be restored after this revolt of 1857. So this kind of promises were made by the Britishers to break the unity of the rebellious leaders. You can see that this is a mosque, and how the mosque had been destroyed. So this is not destroyed by the rebellious people, rather it was destroyed by the Britishers when they tried to undertake a series of repression against these rebellious leaders. This is again a palace. This is a palace in Sikandar Bagh, that is in Lucknow. So it is a photography of 1858. So this is the original photo of that palace. You can see that the palace has been destroyed by the Britishers, and you can also see that a lot of corpses or skeletons are there on the ground in front of this palace. And these skeletons are of the Indian soldiers or Indian rebellious people. So they tried to suppress the rebellious people brutally by killing them. And there was no one in India who could claim their dead bodies. So they were lying like this. So this kind of images were produced in the newspaper and magazines of Britain so that the British could have an assurance that the rebellions would be crushed by the British government, and secondly it was also a way to create the terror in the mind of the Indian people so that they do not turn to be rebellions against the Britishers. Now, images of revolt. Whenever such kind of happenings occur, images also play an important role. So what kind of role was played by the pictures and images which were published in the newspaper and magazine, and mainly these were published by the Britishers when they tried to repress the revolt. Official record tell us about the fear and anxiety of the officials and their perception of the rebels. The stories of the revolt that were published in the British newspaper and magazines in gory detail the violence of the mutineer, and these stories inflamed public feeling and provoked demand for retribution and revenge. So there was a demand for retribution and revenge. So why the people were provoked against the Indians? This was a deliberate plan of the Britishers so that nobody would raise a voice when the rebellions would be repressed by the British government. So they made a public sentiment by publishing the news while giving the gory details, exaggeration of the act of the rebellions in India, that how they are killing the white people, how brutal they are. They were also shown as the barbaric, and it is not a sin or it is not a crime to kill such kind of people. So that kind of public sentiment was done by publishing the news about the rebellions in the British newspaper and magazine, so that the Britishers start hating the people who were rebellions in India. One important record of the mutiny is the pictorial image. So whatever the images were printed in the magazine and newspaper, they were having a wide implication on the mind of the common Britishers in Britain. These were the posters, cartoons, and these were produced by Indian and the British. British pictures provide a variety of images that were meant to provoke emotions and reactions. So Britishers deliberately published such kind of images which provokes the sentiment of the Britishers against the Indians, so that a strict action could be undertaken and strict laws could be framed in the British Parliament against the rebellious people. Some of them commemorate the British heroes who were able to crush the rebellious people in India and who saved the life of English and who also repressed the rebels. So those people or those British were commemorated in these newspapers and magazines who saved the life of the Britishers in India and who put the repression or who were able to crush the Indian rebellions. So they were commemorated, they were celebrated as the hero in the magazines and newspaper which were published in the Britain. Now there are some images of the revolt that we will discuss one by one. So images of the revolt. You can see that this is an image, and this image is called as the Relief of Lucknow, and it was painted by Thomas John Barker, and it celebrates the victory of the Britishers. You can see that these are the Britishers and these are the ordinary Britishers which were saved by these people. So this is about the arrival of the Colin Campbell when they conquered the fort of Lucknow, because many Britons were captured by the rebellions in the fort of Lucknow and they were not able to fight against these Indian rebellions, and many of them were also killed. So finally Colin Campbell and Henry Havelock arrived there, and they crushed these rebellions and they saved the life of these Britons. So here you can see that the focus of the image is this place where the meeting of Henry Havelock and Colin Campbell has been shown, and these are the rebellions people who were crushed or who were killed by the troops of the Britishers, and they were lying on the ground. So the clear aim of painting this kind of picture is to assure the common Britishers that now their life would be saved by the British troops and they are having no threat at all henceforth. So this was only done to celebrate the victory of the Britishers, and the people who have been shown here, they were celebrated as the heroes, and it was also a way to give assurance to the common Britishers that now they are secure because British army has arrived. Now this is a second image. Here you can see that a lady is there and there are some children who are surrounding her. So this is the image which is known as the In Memoriam, and it is painted by Joseph Noel Paton. And in this way they are trying to paint that there is a lady who is helpless, and the children are also quite afraid, and as a result they are hugging around her. And you can see that there are some soldiers who are trying to enter inside. So these are the rebellious soldiers who were Indians. Now you can see that they are awaiting whatever inevitable is going to happen there. It means they would be put to death by these rebellions. So this is a way to provoke the sentiment of the common Britishers against the rebellions who were Indians, so that they can be curbed and crushed. So here the Indians have been shown as the villain who are not sparing even the children and the women. So that is a way to instigate the feeling of the Britishers and other people against the Indian rebellions, and it is a way to show that these rebellious soldiers are having no morals in their life. They are totally immoral people, and they are not having any ethics, and they are not having any respect for the women and the children. Here you can see that there is a British lady who is trying to kill the muscular soldiers of India. They are the rebellions. You can see that these are killed by this lady, and she has been shown over here as a heroine, and she is doing a heroic deed of killing the rebellious people in India. So this kind of picture was also painted to assure that the British are able to handle anybody who are against them. And this is Miss Wheeler, and she is defending herself against the sepoys in Kanpur. And there is a book which is also lying here. This book is of Bible. So in this way they are also trying to make it a holy war against the Indians, because the Indians are not respecting their religion, their women and their religious books. So in this way it was a way to provoke the anger of the Britishers against the Indians. So these kind of pictures were also painted in the British newspaper and magazines. This is another image which was published in the Punch newspaper magazine, and it was published on 12th September 1857, and this is named as the Justice. You can see that here is an angry woman, and she is a British woman. She is also having a shield in her hand, and you can see that there is a weighing scale. There is a weighing scale upon this shield, and it is a symbol of justice. It means now the Britain has got angry, and now it is taking revenge upon the people who were humiliating the common Britishers, who were killing the common Britishers, innocent Britishers, and now the Britain is ready to take upon the revenge. And you can see that this lady is having a very angry face, and she is trying to kill everybody, and she is also not sparing even the women and the children. It means now British government has taken retribution upon the Indians. Now it is ready to take revenge upon the Indians. So this was a way to create a terror in the mind of the Indian people that now they will be handled very strictly by the British government. And it was also a way to assure the Britishers that now the government has come forward, or now the company has come forward to secure their life. This is another imagery. Here you can see that now there is a lion which is attacking a tiger. The tiger represents Indian rebellions people, and the lion represent British. So there is a British lion who is trying to attack the Indian tiger. It means the lion is much powerful than the tiger. So whatever the tiger has done, or whatever the Indian had done at that time, that would be crushed by the British forces. So this was a way to show that Britishers are superior than the Indians, and it was also a way to give the assurance to the British that they are very powerful and their government is able to save the life of the Britishers in India, and they can easily defeat the Indian people. The performance of terror. This is another image which was also published in the newspaper, where the rebellious soldiers were captured. The rebellions were captured and they were put to death. They were executed publicly, and the execution of these people publicly was also painted in the newspaper, so that a terror in the mind of the rebellions could be created, that whosoever would turn to be rebellions, they would be put to death publicly like this. You can see that here the soldiers were blown away by putting them in front of the guns, and this is an image from the Peshawar where such kind of act was done by the Britishers. So here rebels were executed, they were blown from guns or hanged from the gallows. So these kind of images of punishment were also published in the newspaper. This is the image where the rebellions were executed in the gallows. So this is execution of mutinous sepoys in Peshawar, and it was published in the Illustrated London newspaper, and it was published on 3rd October 1857, because by that time Britishers were able to win back the areas which they lost in the revolt of 1857, and now they started punishing those disloyal soldiers who turned to be rebellions against the Britishers. This is another cartoon which was published in the newspaper, that is the Punch, and it was published on 24th October 1857. Here the line is that no time for clemency. It means whosoever Britishers were having a soft corner in their heart for the Indians, they were mocked, they were ridiculed in the British newspaper and the magazines. And this is the Governor General, and he was Lord Canning, and he is trying to console the Indian soldier by showing sympathy to the Indian soldier, and this was a way of Lord Canning, which he considered that the loyalty of the Indian soldiers could be won back by showing sympathy and leniency to them. So you can see that in this cartoon, this is Lord Canning, and here it is Indian soldier who is also having a sword or a dagger in his hand, and it is seethed with blood. Means उसके पास एक ऐसी तलवार है जिससे खून टपक रहा है. Means he must have killed the Britishers, and he was very angry, but still the British Governor General is showing sympathy to him. So this was a way to ridicule the policy of Lord Canning, so that he doesn't show any sympathy to the Indians. So any leniency or any clemency towards the Indian at that time was ridiculed in the British newspaper and magazines, because already people were provoked by showing the images which I have shown you in the previous slides. So all those were the imageries of the Britishers. Now here we will discuss the imageries which were used by the Indians. So at that time Indians were not having the printing press, so they did not use much images. But later on, when the Indians started their freedom struggle against the Britishers in the 20th century, and this was the period of nationalist movement, at that time the heroes of the 1857 revolt were commemorated by creating the images in the newspapers and magazines, and generally these newspapers and magazines were started by the Indian freedom fighters. So here we will discuss about those nationalist imageries. So you can see that this is an image, and you all must be aware that this is the image of Rani Lakshmi Bai, who fought bravely against the Britishers. And there is a tagline, खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी. You must be aware that this is the line of a poem, and this poem is written by Subhadra Kumari Chauhan. खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी, बुंदेले हर बोलों के मुख सुनी हमने कहानी थी. Because she was from Bundelkhand, so बुंदेले हर बोलों के मुख सुनी हमने कहानी थी, खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी. So these are the lines which has been extracted from the poem which was written by Subhadra Kumari Chauhan. So here the lady Rani Lakshmi Bai, she fought bravely against the Britishers, and she has been commemorated as the hero of Indian freedom fight against the Britishers. And she was commemorated during the nationalist movement, and this was a way to create pride among the people of India who lost their pride due to the British rule in India, and they were made aware about the heroes of the past who fought against the Britishers. So this was a way to create the nationalist feeling among the Indian people, to arise the pride in the Indian mind of the Indian people. So that is a way to create the nationalist sentiments by the nationalist leaders of that time. Leaders of the revolt were presented as the heroic figure leading the country into the battle of freedom. The poets and the writers also gave their full support with their narratives and the poems. So one such poem is written by Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, where these heroes of 1857 revolt were commemorated, and their stories were also told to the generation of that time, so that they also start fighting against the Britishers, and they also take pride of their past heroes, and they can also fight bravely like them. So this was also a way to create a nationalist identity, nationalist feeling in the mind of the people, and this was a way to make the nationalist movement against the Britishers successful by our freedom fighters. So that's all about this chapter. I hope it is all clear to you.